Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi. So today I'm going to show you guys my spinning process from start to finish. Disclaimer, I am such a newbie to this still and I have a hard time calling this a tutorial. So this is more of a what I wish I knew before I started spinning, or just like random things I've picked up along the way that I think is useful if you're just starting out. Here are some of my favorite yarns that I've spun recently. Today I'm going to be spinning on my electric eel wheel 6.1 from Dreaming Robots. I got that back in November, and before that I was spinning on just drop spindles. These type of drop spindles. I just thrifted these. You can definitely buy them online too. And the fiber that I'm spinning, I'm so excited to spin. I've been waiting to spin this for a while now. I won a mystery bat from a wild offering on Instagram. If you're into spinning at all, you probably know who that is. It's one of my favorite fiber artists, Raina. She's amazing. She makes the most beautiful mystery bats. I won this mystery bat from her. It's like peach and gold and red and gray. It's like the most beautiful blend ever. And before I won that giveaway, I bought this mystery bat from her. So we'll see if we have enough time to spin both of them. But I think for this video, I'm gonna focus on this one. I'm literally just drooling over all of these colors. It's so beautiful. And it's from her sheep on her farm. So cool. I also want to give you guys some good resources so you can learn more about spinning, which actually leads me into the sponsor of this video, Craftsy. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative. They have classes on a wide variety of topics like sewing, crocheting, knitting, cooking, gardening, weaving, and more, which actually makes them the perfect sponsor for this video because they have a large library of fiber resources, teaching techniques like fiber prep, spinning on a wheel and a spindle, and just the foundations of spinning, as well as knitting and crocheting videos. My most anticipated class that I'll be taking this month is Professional Yarn Dyeing at Home by Sarah Eyre. I've been experimenting a little bit with dyeing yarn at home, but I want to really dive into it and take a full class on it and just broaden my skill set. Sarah walks through basic dyeing techniques, but also includes information on prepping the yarn, variegated yarns, and dyeing different fiber types. I've also taken other classes on topics like knitting with beads, weaving, Tunisian crochet, and sewing techniques and tips. It's really the all-in-one resource for crafty people like myself. Even better, members get access to a full library of knitting, crocheting, and sewing patterns. Craftsy is always creating new classes to keep you coming back for more and to help you stay inspired whatever your creative endeavor is at the time. And if you're watching this, I'm sure you love the satisfaction of making things with your own two hands, so why not give Craftsy a try? And don't wait, because the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in my description will get a full year of a premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49, which is a huge discount from the normal price of $123. Remember, this offer is only valid for new members only. Thank you so much to Craftsy for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. Okay, first things first, I like to prep my fiber a little bit before I start spinning. This includes splitting it in half because I do want to ply this yarn, so I want to have even singles. So I usually split my bats in half first, and then I'll tear them into smaller pieces, just because you don't want to be doing that as you're spinning. Like once you get into the rhythm, you don't want to have to keep like stopping, prepping your fiber, etc. Also, it's important to note that sometimes your fibers can be very close together and kind of compact, so doing something called pre-drafting actually helps a lot. So pre-drafting would be just like slightly pulling the fibers apart to kind of loosen them a bit. This bat is pretty like airy on its own, so I don't think I'm gonna have to do too much of that. Also, one more thing to note is before you start, you probably want to check your fiber's staple length. It's basically the amount of space that is in between your fingers before the fibers start to break, and that is going to determine like how much you draft. If you start off with longer staple lengths, it's a little bit easier. Shorter staple lengths can be a little bit difficult for beginners. So yeah, if you find that your fiber is like very compact, it might help to kind of fluff it up a little bit before you actually put it on the wheel or your spindle. So I'm gonna split this in half and then prep it to spin. Okay, so this is half of that bat that I just split into smaller pieces, and I'm going to start with that for my first single. So basically, when I'm saying single, I mean that I'm spinning one single single. Basically with a single is you're just spinning one thread of the yarn. Like if you look at most commercial yarns, they'll have like multiple plies. Personally, I almost always ply my yarn, so I am just gonna spin half of it on one bobbin. This is a bobbin. I'm gonna spin one of it on one bobbin, another one on another bobbin, and then ply them together on a different third bobbin. You can also do this with spindles. You can spin 2 different singles on spindles and then ply them together. Now I'm gonna attach a leader, and basically what a leader does is it helps the wool catch, like when you're first starting. So I usually take like maybe 3 feet, maybe 3.5 feet for a leader. I just tie it together, so it's basically like a big loop. Also, I apologize for my setup right now. I am in the process of moving, so I'm very limited on furniture. So the electric wheels actually have switches or pedals. Mine has a pedal. So if you press it, it'll start. Kind of similar to a sewing machine. I've used a sewing machine before, so I feel like it's kind of intuitive to use the foot pedal. But a traditional treadle wheel, you're actually just like pushing your feet down, and that's what's spinning the wheel. So that's kind of how I'm making it start and stop. I'm also gonna make sure that this is a Z twist, which means it's going clockwise. I'll explain the Z twist and S twist a little bit more later, but I'm gonna put my leader on. So I just pull it through, and I like to do it twice, so it can kind of go in both directions. You also use a leader for a drop spindle. That is kind of how I start. Now I have my leader coming out of the wheel. I'm just gonna start winding it up and see how it's adding twist into the leader. So I just add some twist. I held it with my finger, so there's this little opening. And I really just like put this in there, and the energy should already travel up through this. See how it's like already twisting? Then I just start spinning. And this is called drafting. So drafting is when you're pulling the fiber, and the way I kind of think of it is your front finger is blocking between the spun section and the unspun section. So basically drafting, I think of it as dictating like how much of the wool is gonna go into the spun part. And you'll get more consistent as you practice. I'm a little rusty right now because I haven't spun in a while. You'll get a feel for it though. Usually the distance you hold your hands apart is the staple length. I feel like these bats are kind of meant to be a little bit uneven, a little bit messy because of how many different types of fibers are in it. I feel like it's really difficult to get like a pretty even spin. Usually I like to check and make sure I'm putting enough spin in. I think what I struggled the most when I was starting to spin is how to attach new fiber once you kind of run out of the first strip. I think it's easier on the wheel, to be honest. So this is a new strip of fiber. If you like loosen it at the top a little bit and come at it at an angle, so depending on what direction your twist is, basically I kind of just like slowly introduce it and see how it catches it. And then I like blend it with what I'm already holding. Coming in at an angle helps a lot in making sure that you like kind of loosen the fibers at the tip. Here's how it looks so far. So that's pretty much the basics of getting your singles started. And then you just repeat that over and over and over again. I did ask on Instagram if you guys had any questions. Like I said, I'm a newbie to this, but if I can like answer anything in my experience to be helpful, like I want to do that for you guys. So I asked on Instagram if you guys had any questions about it. And someone asked like how much twist are you supposed to put in? That really just depends on your final product. If you're applying yarn, it's always good to do a little bit of an overly energetic yarn, because when you apply, it'll all kind of even out onto each other. That is one thing that I also struggled with when I first started. I think my first spin was like way too much spin, and I wasn't letting the twist travel far enough before I started spinning my spindle again. I think the amount of spin is one thing that you just have to get a feel for. Like, it's hard to explain it if you're not doing it, and you'll kind of start to get a feel of like how much twist you can put in and like what you can get away with, if that makes sense. Another question I got is the kind of terminology of the fiber that you can find online, and usually I'd say like the top 3 things that you'll find is comb top, a bat, and a rolag. A comb top is going to be your cleanest looking fiber, so that's processed in a way where all the fibers are aligned in the same direction. I feel like it's really good for beginners because there's not a lot of variation. Everything is pretty consistent. Next is a bat. That's a flat sheet and it's carded, so most of the fibers are aligned in the same direction. Not as much as comb top is, but it's a really good way to have a lot of colors in your yarn because people blend colors together to make art bats and stuff like that, and you can add a lot of fun colors and textures. That's what this is, what I'm spinning today. This is a bat. And then a rollag is basically in the shape of a roll. And rollags are prepped with hand carders. Not all the fibers are aligned in the same direction, so it makes like a very airy, fluffier yarn. I feel like if I wanted to rank the three on personal preference, I would say bat, then comb top, then rollags. For beginners, I think comb top is probably the easiest thing to start with. And those are all just referring to the type of fiber prep, not like the type of sheep or anything. I'll say for beginners, like a longer staple length, like I was explaining earlier, like the more space you can have in between your fingers, a longer staple length is better for beginners. So like a Cordale wool. Another question asked where to buy fiber. So I feel like Etsy is a really good place to buy fiber. There's tons of sellers on there that will sell comb top or bats, rollags. Also just going on Instagram and finding sellers. A lot of people prep fiber for people to spin and post them on Instagram, and a lot of those people have websites. I'll link a few of my favorites down below. There's a farmer at the farmer's market that is near my apartment, and they sell wool, so I do get wool from them sometimes too. Check out farms in your local area. Sometimes people try to sell wool on Facebook Marketplace. Otherwise, creative reuse centers, sometimes you can get lucky. Some yarn stores will have roving, not always, it's not that common. At least the places that I've been. I feel like I'm not focused on this. I'm like not doing well. Pretty much like the top question that was asked also is just like, where do you start? And 100% I would say start with a spindle. They're a lot lower cost than a spinning wheel. I think I bought my spindle for $5 at a thrift store. Look at a creative reuse center, they might have some. Some people make their own. Also, just buying them online. Places that sell wool will also sell drop spindles. You can look on Etsy. But yeah, start on a spindle just because it's a lot cheaper and you'll get a little better of a feel of drafting and practicing that instead of having like a continuous pull, because you kind of have to catch up to it. It's basically like you're racing the uptake of the fiber. So I feel like starting with a drop spindle definitely helps. Like I said, comb top I think would be a good option for beginners as far as fiber goes. But other than that, that's pretty much all you need is some fiber and a spindle. I'd say I'm a little bit over halfway done with this single. But yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot. And also, like I said again, I'm not an expert on any of these things. Like I am learning just along with you guys. I really haven't done that much spinning in comparison to a lot of other people. So really take what I say with a grain of salt, because this is kind of just things that I have absorbed over the last couple of months. I'm gonna finish the single up and then we'll check in a little bit. Okay, so I went ahead and spun my second single just because it was like the same process as the first one, so I didn't feel the need to show it again. But now I have 2 bobbins of singles and now I'm gonna ply them together. I will say my second spin was a little bit more even than my first one. The first one I was like kind of distracted and had to kind of get back into it. So it doesn't really matter that much. They're both like a little bit overspun, which is perfect actually for plying, because plying is where you take that spin out and they'll like twist onto each other. So like I was saying, there is a Z twist and an S twist, and that basically is just the direction that you're spinning. So think of the letter Z and S, and the middle part is which way your twist should be slanting. I'll put in a picture so it makes a little bit more sense. Typically I spin my singles in Z's and then ply them in S. I feel like that's pretty standard and that's what a lot of like commercial yarn does, but apparently if you spin S and ply in Z, it's better for crocheting. I'll have to do a little bit more research on that. I just kind of stick with the same thing, so I always do my singles in Z, and ply in S. And same thing goes with the spindle. It's just basically which way you're spinning. So a Z twist is clockwise and an S twist is counterclockwise. That's kind of how you can think of it. So my plying setup, you can obviously buy something called a Lazy Kait, but this does the same thing. So I have this box, I don't know where it's from, and then I use knitting needles. But basically what I do is I take my 2 singles and I'll put this needle in like that, and then I'll do this one as well. So I just have these knitting needles, and now these can unwind together, and that's how I'm gonna ply them. So if you are using a spindle, here's a little visual, but I just take a toilet paper roll and I put it on a ball winder like this. I'll wind it on this toilet paper roll so I can take it out. And then same thing, you can put it in the Lazy Kait and it'll just spin off. It's kind of like a little hack, is just using a toilet paper roll. There's tons of equipment and stuff, but honestly, like I'd say like try to DIY what you can, because like a Lazy Kait, like this works just fine. I have another empty bobbin, which I'm gonna put on my wheel. So now I have this by my feet and they can pull freely. I'm also, like I said, gonna switch this to an S twist, so it's gonna spin the opposite direction. Again, I'm gonna start twisting my leader up and leaving like a little bit of a hole here. And then I'm actually just gonna take each end of my singles like this. So that's the first one and the second one. And they should spin onto themselves. So this part, you kind of have to play around with what degree of twist you like. This bat has so many different types of fibers. It was really, honestly, very difficult for me to keep everything very consistent. So there is going to be a lot of differing weights in the spin. I basically like to ply it to the point where it's spinning up on itself. If it's spinning up on itself too much, then it's going to be a little bit harder to set the twist later and like let out that extra energy in the yarn. This is my favorite part of spinning because you can kind of see all the fun colors come together. But yeah, it's kind of just like a rhythm once you get into it. It is okay to have some energy left in your yarn because you can dry it weighted after you thwack it and stuff, which I'll show you guys once I'm done plying. Usually it can all straighten out in the end. You just have to trust the process. Sorry, it's getting a little bit dark. The sun is going down. I guess I'll answer like a few more questions more specific to plying. So I ply almost all of my yarn just because it adds durability. So any twist added to the fiber is strength. Plying just helps glue everything together. I feel like singles just aren't as durable and they pill easier. So I do enjoy like the actual plying part. It's a lot easier on my fingers because I don't have to pinch as much. But yeah, I want to again touch on underrated tools when it comes to spinning. I think the best tool to have while spinning is a scale, just because, especially with the singles, you want them to be as even as possible so you don't have like a lot of waste left over when you're done plying. If you are spinning on a spindle, the toilet paper roll with the ball winder is probably your best bet as far as getting everything off the spindle and able to be plied. Someone also asked, do you have a project in mind when you're spinning? And it's funny because like actually almost never do I have a project in mind when I'm spinning. I, in my head, separate the crafts as like 2 different things. Like when I'm spinning yarn, I'm spinning to look at this like beautiful yarn rather than to have a function for it, I guess. Which I'm trying to get better at using my hand spun, but that's kind of like where my head's at. So I usually spin with the end goal of having like a nice hank of yarn rather than having something to use in like a sweater or something. Also, it's really hard to get like a quantity of yarn for something bigger than like a small winter accessory, because a lot of the time bats are sold in like 4 ounces, which isn't that much. It's like 100 grams. But the hand spun accessories that I do make, I feel like I wear them all the time. Like I have this one hat that I made from all of my wool scraps from other spins. Here's what it's looking like right now. The lighting is really bad, so I'll show you guys tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. So I finished plying that bat. Here is what she looks like. I honestly feel very rusty because after this spin, I actually did start spinning this bat. Sorry I didn't film it, but I just got so excited because I'm back into it. So I have 1 single of this and then I'm currently spinning the second one. So I'll show you guys at the end, but I will say I was a lot more even on this one, especially because I did do a lot more pre-drafting, which is what I was talking about, where you kind of loosen the fibers beforehand, which I didn't do as much for this pink one, and I think that hurt me a little bit. So I'm reiterating the importance on just a little bit of pre-drafting goes a long way. I just love all the fun colors and textures in this one, and I can't wait to see what it looks like off the bobbin. So that's our next step, is we're gonna take this off the bobbin. I usually call it like processing the wool, but it's kind of like an intense word for really just like soaking and drying the yarns. So that is our next step. It's me again telling you that you don't have to invest in all of the spinning supplies that you might see other people using. You can get by a lot by just using stuff you already have. For example, you don't really need a niddy noddy. It is really nice and you can make them yourselves, but I have never used one. What I do is I wrap around this milk crate. I've also wrapped around like a table or a stool before. It is a little bit more involved as far as like physical activity, but I'm just trying to tell you, you don't have to buy a bunch of supplies when you're first starting out. So now what we have to do to have a finished product is we're going to do something called thwacking and soaking. And there's probably a better way to do this. This is just how I do it. I have to get this off the bobbin and get it into a hank form. So that's basically when you have the yarn like this. And the reason why a lot of hand spun is stored like this, at least from what I've gathered, is that storing in hank form has a lot less tension on the fibers, especially for hand spun. Like hand spun can be pretty delicate, so it has less tension on the fibers while storing it. So to get from the bobbin into hank form, I'm just gonna wrap it around this milk crate. Okay, so now we have our yarn wrapped around whatever circumference works for you. So two things, I'm going to tie my ends together. Usually the circumference doesn't reach all the way around, so what I do is this extra bit I use to tie these together. But before I do that, I'll show you how I measure the yardage. You just have to know the circumference of what you are measuring. It's really simple math. I'm sure you guys could figure this out, but basically you measure whatever object you're wrapping around. In this case, I already use this a lot, so I know it's like 53 inches, 53-inch circumference, and then you basically just count how many strands you have wrapping around that. 48, 49, and then I multiply 49 by 53, 2,597 inches. Divide that by 12, that is how many feet you have, and then divide that by 3. And that is how many yards you have. Now, as far as getting this off of here, we want to make sure that we secure it first. In order to do that, like I said, I had like a little bit left over on my ply. What I do is I split them in half like that, take my fiber, put it through the middle here. You're basically making a figure 8. And then this end I wrap underneath, and then I tie them together here. And I usually do about 4 of these. So now we're all secured, and I'm just gonna take it off. If you've never spun before, you might think that this is the end result. It looks a little crazy because it still has a lot of twist in it, and that is just twist that's left over. This is another thing that you kind of get experience with as you keep practicing. I usually have a decent amount of twist left over in my yarn once I'm done, but I have done this a few times, so I know that the twist will kind of let itself out once I process it. So if you've never spun before and you come off of your spindle looking like this, it's okay, it's gonna work out. The next step is I'm just gonna soak this in warm, not hot, warm water with a little bit of soap. I use Dr. Bronner's. I probably, if I wasn't myself, would use a wool wash, something more tailored to wool, but I've just always used Dr. Bronner's and it works just fine, so. So the next thing I do is I squeeze all of the water out with a towel because you do not want to wring out your yarn. The best option is to use a towel. So I roll it all up in a towel and squeeze out all the extra water. Next, I'm gonna do something called thwacking. So that's basically just like whipping this against a hard surface. And that kind of sets the twist. So another thing you can do to kind of straighten everything out is just like put your hands in between like that and just like, and then thwacking, you just See how much the yarn has relaxed just from soaking it? Remember how curly it was? It still could be a little bit more straight, so now I'm just gonna hang it to dry. The current drying station, I usually just use a clothing rack. You can hang it from anything. I put the yarn around the hanger like this, hang it up, and then you just have to dry it a little bit weighted, so you can put really anything on here. My secret tool for this is actually using an Nalgene water bottle, because you can adjust how much weight you put in it. I feel like I've been doing that ever since I started. So I just wrap this around my Nalgene bottle and then pull it a little bit. That should help it dry a lot straighter. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like processing goes and thwacking. So now I just wait until that dries. So I'll show you guys this tomorrow once it's fully dry. My yarn is now dry. So here is the final product. I love it so much. There's so many different colors and textures in this blend. I'm just like obsessed with A Wild Offering. Definitely check her Etsy page out. I also showed you guys that I was spinning the second one and I actually finished that one too. This is the second bat from Raina. They just look so gorgeous together. I'm so excited to use this for something. Not sure what. Like I said, I like making like smaller accessories, so I might make a hat or something. But that is pretty much my spinning process from start to finish. Again, this is not a tutorial. I pretty much just yapped about like random things that I picked up along the way as far as spinning goes. I feel like the best way to get into it is to literally just start, because you'll get a feel for it as you practice. And then the more you learn about spinning, the more you can apply to what you're actually working on. It's such a low cost craft to get into, which slowly gets to a very expensive one, I will say, but a drop spindle is not that expensive. And then just get some scrap wool and have some fun. If you want to watch my first ever spinning vlog, I'll link it. You'll kind of be able to see the progress, because that is the first time that I ever spun. I will link a playlist down below of a lot of different videos that I used when I was first starting. Other than that, definitely check out Craftsy. They have a lot of different resources on fiber stuff. But if you have any questions that you think I could answer or try to point you in the right direction, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, make sure you subscribe. I actually noticed that only 40% of you guys are subscribed. So if you haven't done that already, make sure you do that down below. If you want to see more of my spins, I usually post them on Instagram. Follow me there at minigru.studios. Other than that, I hope you have a great day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.